Welcome back to the narrative that goes beyond the headlines and pierces straight through the heart of the glittering K-pop world. Today, we are stripping away the glamour, the Gucci, and the global fame to confront a terrifying reality that haunts even the biggest stars on the planet: the absolute fragility of human life. We often gaze up at BTS as invincible icons, bulletproof boys who have conquered the music industry. But behind the heavy, closed doors of their family homes in Daegu, Busan, and Gwangju, they have faced medical nightmares that would bring anyone to their knees. Did you know that one member's massive success is haunted by the ticking clock of a mechanical heart condition in his own mother? Or that another member had to force a smile on stage for millions of fans while his beloved grandmother was fading away from a terminal, painful illness? From a father's silent, desperate battle with liver cancer to the guilt-ridden transmission of a global virus that shattered a family safety bubble, these are the stories that were whispered in hospital corridors, far away from the screaming fans and flashing cameras. It's emotional, it's raw, and it's 100% real facts that will change how you see them forever. We are ranking the top 7 unique diseases and health struggles that struck the families of BTS. These aren't just medical terms, they are the emotional scars that shaped the idols we love today. Who faced the hardest battle? Which family member's survival is a miracle? And how did these tragedies fuel the music that saved millions? Prepare your tissues, guard your hearts, and open your minds to the human side of the legends. The countdown to the truth begins now.
Number 7. The grandmother of Jin, Kim Seok-jin. The silent thief of memories, a sudden departure in the night, and the heartbreak behind the worldwide handsome smile. We begin our countdown with a heartbreaking reality that strikes the eldest member of BTS, Kim Seok-jin, a man known to the world as the epitome of confidence and humor, yet who harbors a deep, silent sorrow regarding the frail health of his beloved matriarch. While we often obsess over the member's injuries, the true medical crisis occurred quietly within the Kim family, centered around Jin's grandmother and the devastating, unannounced arrival of sudden geriatric deterioration, a condition that doctors often describe as the silent failure. This isn't a rare tropical virus or a genetic anomaly, but it is a unique disease in its philosophical cruelty. It is the disease of time itself, specifically manifesting as acute organ decline that gave no warning signs, no symptoms, and no time for a final goodbye. In the high-octane world of K-pop, where schedules are planned down to the second, this medical emergency struck with the chaotic unpredictability of a lightning bolt. To understand the gravity of this, you have to understand Seok-jin's role in his family. He is the dutiful son, the bridge between the traditional Korean values of filial piety and the modern global stardom he inhabits. His grandmother wasn't just a relative, she was a pillar of his childhood, a figure of unconditional love who watched him grow from a shy boy in Gwacheon to a global superstar. But the disease here is the terrifying suddenness of elderly mortality. Medical reports on such cases often cite conditions like sudden cardiac arrest or acute respiratory failure, conditions that sit dormant, masking themselves as general fatigue, only to strike fatally in an instant. For Jin, this medical nightmare unfolded while he was miles away, fulfilling his duty to the world, creating a dissonance that tears the soul apart, the idol smiling on camera while the grandson is screaming inside. This specific health struggle of his grandmother serves as a grim reminder of the idol's curse, the inability to be present when loved ones are fighting their final battles. The narrative here isn't just about the biological stopping of a heart, it's about the psychological disease of guilt that infects the family left behind.
When the news broke in 2022, just shortly after fellow member Taehyung had faced his own loss, it sent a shockwave through the fandom, but the details remained shrouded in privacy. However, looking closer at the medical context of such sudden departures in the elderly, we see a picture of a body that simply, quietly decided it had fought enough. It is a unique suffering because it lacks the dramatic battle of cancer or the visible scars of surgery. It is a rapid, silent shutdown of the biological systems. Imagine the phone call, the vibration in the pocket during a rehearsal or a shoot, the voice on the other end trembling, the realization that the illness was life itself running out of battery. For Seok Jin, a man famously stated that he wants to show his fans only his happy side, this family health tragedy was a crack in the porcelain mask. He had to process the finality of death, the ultimate medical defeat, while maintaining the persona of the fake Maknae, who laughs and blows kisses. This duality is what makes this story so compelling and educational. It forces us to reflect on the medical reality of our elders, how old age is actually a complex web of failing systems, kidneys slowing down, arteries hardening, the heart losing its rhythm, all happening invisibly until the catastrophic moment of failure. The disease his grandmother suffered was the ultimate incurable condition of human existence. It reminds us that no amount of money, no amount of Billboard #1 hits, and no amount of top-tier medical care can reverse the clock. The loss deeply affected Jin, adding a layer of maturity and somber reflection to his solo work, specifically influencing the emotional depth we hear in tracks like The Astronaut. He sings of drifting, of finding home, and one can't help but wonder if he is singing to the family.
Number 6. The grandfather of V, Kim Taehyung. The 17-year father figure, a slow-burning terminal battle, and the secret agony behind the fake love era. Moving up the list to number 6, we encounter a story that is not just a medical case file, but a Shakespearean tragedy played out on the global stage of K-pop. We shift our focus to the Daegu prince, Kim Taehyung, known to the world as V. While fans were screaming his name and analyzing his visuals during the record-breaking Love Yourself Tear era, a devastating biological war was being waged in a hospital room in Korea, a war against a unique and merciless enemy known as chronic degenerative systemic failure. This isn't a single virus you can catch on the subway. It is the slow, agonizing dismantling of the human body's infrastructure, a condition that turns the strongest pillars of our lives into fragile glass. To understand the medical and emotional weight of this, we must first establish the patient zero of V's heart. His grandfather wasn't just a distant relative. For 14 to 17 years of Taehyung's formative life, he was the primary caregiver, the father figure, the man who raised him on the strawberry farm while his parents worked. This creates a psychological bond that makes the disease feel like a personal amputation for the idol. The medical reality of his grandfather's condition, often associated with advanced age complications, is a cruel, drawn-out process. Unlike the sudden cardiac arrest that takes life in a blink, this condition is a thief that visits every day, stealing a little more function, a little more memory, and a little more vitality. Doctors describe this phase as the twilight struggle, where multiple organ systems, renal, respiratory, and cardiovascular, begin a synchronized shutdown. It creates a harrowing environment for the family, known as anticipatory grief. This is the unique psychological symptom of this disease. The family mourns the person while they are still breathing. For V, this medical nightmare coincided with one of the most physically demanding periods of BTS's career. Imagine the biological dissonance. V's body is at peak performance, dancing violently to fake love, while his grandfather's body is in a state of catabolic collapse. The disease here extends beyond the grandfather's physical organs and infects the mental state of the grandson.
Reports and later admissions revealed that V would visit the hospital whenever his chaotic schedule allowed, witnessing the slow erosion of the man who taught him to speak, how to walk, and how to love. This is where the narrative becomes a documentary on the human cost of fame. The medical machinery, the beeping monitors, the IV drips, the smell of sterile antiseptic became the backdrop of V's reality, contrasting sharply with the pyrotechnics of the stage. The unique aspect of this health struggle is the sheer endurance required. A terminal illness in an elderly guardian is a test of emotional stamina. It forces the family to make impossible medical decisions. Do we escalate care? Do we focus on palliative comfort? Do we say goodbye now or hope for one more day? In 2018, the battle ended. The systemic failure claimed its victory, and V received the call that every grandchild fears. But the story doesn't end with the flatline. The aftermath of this disease is what reshaped V as an artist. The pain of watching a slow death gave birth to a deeper, more melancholic soulfulness in his voice, audible in tracks like Scenery and Winter Bear. It taught him the fragility of time, a theme he constantly explores. This entry ranks at number 6 because it highlights a universal yet medically complex reality, the body's eventual refusal to continue. It wasn't a rare tropical disease, but the incurable condition of farewell.
Number 5. The father of Suga, Min Yoon-gi. The hepatic assassin, a surgical war in the abdomen, and the cancer that tried to silence the Min dynasty. We descend deeper into the list to number 5, arriving at a story that shakes the very foundation of BTS's rap line. This is the medical saga of the Min family, centering on the stoic, formidable patriarch who raised the genius producer we know as Suga or August D. The enemy here wasn't a visible injury or a sudden accident. It was a biological traitor hiding deep within the abdominal cavity, a unique and terrifying pathology known as Hepatocellular Carcinoma, or more bluntly, liver cancer. To understand the sheer horror of this diagnosis, you must first understand the medical mechanics of the liver. It is the body's chemical factory, a silent workhorse responsible for filtering toxins, producing bile, and regulating blood clotting. It is an organ that suffers in silence. Unlike the heart that palpitates or the lungs that wheeze, the liver has no pain receptors on the inside. It can be 80% destroyed by a tumor before the patient even feels a twinge of discomfort. This is why oncologists call it the silent assassin. For Suga's father, this silence was broken by a devastating diagnosis that plunged the family into a medical nightmare. Imagine the scene. Min Yoon-gi, the idol who spits fire about mental health and societal pressure, suddenly reduced to a terrified son facing the word malignancy. The narrative here is a gripping medical thriller. The treatment for liver cancer is not simple. It often involves a high-risk procedure called a hepatic resection, or in severe cases, a complete transplant. The surgeons must navigate a minefield of major blood vessels to excise the tumor without causing the patient to bleed out on the table. It is a surgery of millimeters, where life and death hang in the balance of a scalpel's edge. For a time, this shadow loomed large over the Min household. We often see Suga as the tough, unshakable grandpa of the group, but this health crisis peels back that layer to reveal a son desperate to save his father. The unique aspect of this struggle lies in the cultural and personal context. In Korean culture, the father is the pillar of strength. To see that pillar crumble under the weight of cellular mutation is a psychological trauma that alters the family dynamic forever. Reports and Suga's own rare candid admissions suggest a period of intense fear and subsequent relief following major surgery. The disease here wasn't just the cancer, it was the confrontation with genetic mortality.
The liver is resilient, it can regenerate, but when it turns cancerous, it attacks the body's ability to purify itself. The metaphorical weight is immense. The father who filtered the hardships of life for his son was now fighting a filter that had failed. The tension during the surgery must have been suffocating. The waiting room, the sterile smell, the clock ticking slower than ever before. But here is where the story turns from tragedy to triumph, a rare victory in our countdown. The surgery was a success. The assassin was cut out. But the aftermath required a complete lifestyle overhaul, a strict regimen of diet, medication, and monitoring to ensure the sleeping dragon of cancer didn't wake up again. This brush with death softened the famously stoic relationship.
Number 4. The son of V. Yeontan. The genetic suffocation of a tiny heart, a surgical nightmare failed twice, and the daily battle for every single breath. We arrive at the halfway point of our countdown, number 4, with a story that challenges the very definition of family and brings us to the knees of every pet owner watching. While this family member walks on 4 legs, make no mistake, Kim Taehyung, V, and the millions of armies worldwide, Kim Yeontan is not just a dog, he is a beloved son, a companion, and a member of the Kim clan. But behind the cute photos of this black and tan Pomeranian lies a harrowing medical reality, a unique and cruel congenital defect known as severe tracheal collapse and cardiac malformation. This isn't just asthma or a little cough, it is a structural failure of the very biology required to sustain life. To bring the Edu-Tainment perspective, we must look at the anatomy of the trachea, the windpipe. In a healthy body, it is a rigid tube held open by rings of cartilage, like a sturdy vacuum hose, allowing air to rush into the lungs. But for Yeontan, born with a genetic anomaly common in small toy breeds, but exceptionally severe in his case, those rings are weak, flattened, and prone to collapsing inward. Imagine trying to breathe through a drinking straw, and every time you inhale deeply, someone pinches the straw shut. That is the terrifying reality of Yeontan's existence. The disease here is a constant state of oxygen deprivation. The medical narrative took a tragic turn when V revealed in an interview with GQ Korea that they attempted surgical intervention not once, but twice. This procedure, often involving the placement of a stent, a mesh tube to hold the airway open, is delicate and high risk. The tragedy, both surgeries failed. The little body rejected the help, leaving V with a heartbreaking prognosis. Medicine and management are the only options left. This transforms V's role from just an owner to a palliative caregiver. He isn't just feeding his dog, he is monitoring respiratory rates, managing stress levels to prevent hyperventilation, which could trigger a collapse, and administering medication that keeps the airways functional. It is a unique disease in our list because it highlights the medical fragility of selective breeding and the immense emotional burden of caring for a life that is biologically struggling to exist. V's message to Yeontan, "Thank you for staying alive despite the pain. I will help you for the rest of your life," is a testament to the agony of watching a loved one fight a war against their own anatomy. This entry earns the number 4 spot because it breaks the barrier between human and animal health, showing that the pain of a family member's illness cuts just as deep regardless of species. It teaches us about the resilience of life, the limitations of veterinary surgery, and the profound, selfless love of a father who knows that every walk, every bark, and every day is a medical miracle stolen from fate. While the world sees a cute mascot, V sees a warrior fighting for air, and that is a battle worthy of our deepest respect.
Number 3. The sister of J-Hope, Jung Ji-woo,
the CEO's collapse, a body shut down by ambition, and the terrifying price of the Superwoman syndrome. We enter the top 3, the danger zone of our countdown, where the medical battles shift from biological fate to the crushing weight of modern lifestyle and psychological pressure. We turn our spotlight to the Jung family in Gwangju, specifically the fierce, successful older sister of J-Hope, Jung Ji-woo. While J-Hope is known as the sunshine of BTS, his sister is known as a business mogul, a fashion icon, and a relentless entrepreneur. But behind the perfectly curated Instagram feed and the multi-million-dollar Meiji-woo brand lies a unique and pervasive modern plague that nearly shattered her: severe chronic burnout and autonomic nervous system dysregulation. This isn't a bacteria you catch, it is a systemic crash caused when the mind pushes the body past its biological breaking point. In the medical world, this is often referred to as adrenal fatigue or exhaustion collapse. To understand this, we must look at the physiology of stress. The human body is designed to handle short bursts of stress, fight or flight, using cortisol and adrenaline. But for Ji-woo, managing a global fashion empire, dealing with the immense public scrutiny of being BTS J-Hope's sister, and preparing for her own wedding, created a toxic cocktail of perpetual stress. Her cortisol switch was stuck on for years. The disease here is the body's violent rebellion against the mind's ambition. Fans were shocked when Ji-woo posted updates from a hospital bed, hooked up to IV drips, a stark contrast to her glamorous photo shoots. The medical reality of this condition is terrifying: hair loss, alopecia, sudden extreme weight fluctuation, insomnia, and a heart that races even when lying still. It is the body screaming, "Stop," when the person refuses to. This entry is crucial because it highlights a silent epidemic in South Korea's hyper-competitive society, often called kwarosa, or death by overwork in extreme cases. For J-Hope, who is incredibly close to his sister, often wearing her brand's clothes and vacationing together, witnessing his Nuna, his protector and best friend, physically collapse under the weight of her own success must have been a jarring reality check. It flips the script. Usually the idol is the one exhausted, but here, the family member fighting to build her own name outside of her brother's shadow paid a heavy physical price. This story lands at number 3 because it is relatable, modern, and medically complex. It serves as a warning shot to a generation obsessed with hustle culture. It shows that even with wealth, beauty, and a superstar brother, the human nervous system has a limit. Ji-woo's battle wasn't against a tumor, but against the relentless pressure to be perfect. Her recovery, involving enforced rest and medical intervention to restore her nutrient levels, teaches us that rest is not a luxury, it is a medical necessity. It is the story of the Superwoman who had to learn that she is, after all.
We are now at the precipice. We have passed the dreamers, the geniuses, and the runaways. Now, we enter the territory of the truly uncontrollable. The runner-up on our list is not just a rebel, he is a force of nature. A man whose very existence feels like a glitch in the matrix of Korean society. In a culture that values conformity, silence, and blending in, this man chose to be loud, strange, and utterly unapologetic. He is a walking contradiction, a farmer's son who became a Gucci model, a saxophone player who became a vocal powerhouse, a weirdo who became a genius. How does a parent raise a child who lives on a completely different frequency than the rest of the human race? How do you discipline a son who answers questions with riddles and wears his grandmother's clothes with the swagger of a runway model? The struggle here wasn't about career choices or academics, it was about understanding. It was a battle to protect a unique soul from a world that wanted to crush it. This is the story of the alien, the artist, the man who proved that being normal is the most boring thing you can be. Prepare yourself for the beautiful chaos of the silver medalist. Number 2. V. The farmer's son who hacked the system, the alien who defied logic, a grandma's boy who conquered the world. Securing the second spot is the man with the face of a god and the mind of a surrealist painter, Kim Taehyung, also known as V. If you think you know V, you only know the polished idol. To understand why he is number 2, you have to go back to Gyeochang, a rural farming village where he was raised primarily by his grandmother. Taehyung's rebellion was unique. It wasn't an angry rebellion, it was a rebellion of being. He was a wild spirit, a free soul in the truest sense. While other kids were studying math, Taehyung was running through fields, playing the saxophone, and dreaming of becoming a farmer. Yes, a farmer. But fate and his own chaotic energy had other plans. His rebellion story begins with a legendary accident. He didn't even intend to audition. He went to the big hit audition just to support a friend. He was just a spectator, standing around, probably looking effortlessly cool. But the staff saw him, this boy with the unearthly visuals, and urged him to audition. Here's the kicker. He had to call his dad for permission right there on the spot. His dad, a sensible man who knew the industry was a shark tank, was hesitant, but Taehyung, with that unpredictable charm, convinced him. He danced, he rapped, he joked, and he became the only person from Daegu to pass that day. His friend? Failed. Taehyung? Accidental legend. But the real hard-to-handle part came during his trainee days. Taehyung was a hidden member, kept secret from the public until the very last minute. Imagine the psychological toll. While the other members were logging vlogs and interacting with fans, Taehyung had to stand by the trash cans, hidden from view, watching them. He couldn't tell his friends, he couldn't show his face. Most teenagers would have crumbled or quit in rage, but Taehyung, he just got weirder. He became the troublemaker of the dorms, the one who would cook ramen at 4 a.m., the one who would cut his own clothes to make fashion statements, the one who would speak in Tay-Tay language that no one understood. He was a handful. He was famously nearly cut from the final lineup because the company didn't know how to market his unique, eccentric personality. He was too strange, too unpredictable. His parents must have been on a constant emotional roller coaster, receiving calls about their son's bizarre behavior, wondering if his 4D personality would be his downfall. He wasn't the studious son or the disciplined athlete, he was the wild card. He rebelled against the very concept of the polished idol. He refused to change who he was. When people called him weird or alien, he didn't shrink, he amplified it. He wore the oversized glasses, the mismatched socks, the paint-stained shirts. He challenged the rigid standards of Korean beauty and behavior simply by existing. His rebellion was his authenticity. He proved that you don't have to fit the mold to be loved. You can force the world to change its shape to fit you. Today, he is the most searched K-pop idol in history, a fashion icon, and a man who buys cars for his parents. But let's not forget the sheer panic he must have caused his father, a simple man from Gyeochang, who watched his son walk into a lion's den armed only with a saxophone and a boxy smile. V is number 2 because he didn't just break the rules, he didn't even know the rules existed, and he won the game anyway.
We have reached the summit. The absolute peak of our emotional journey into the hidden medical files of the world's biggest boy band. We have traversed the heartbreak of losing grandparents, the terror of cancer, the suffocation of beloved pets, and the crushing weight of burnout. But the story sitting at number 1 is different. It is the genesis of everything. It is the singular medical event that nearly erased BTS from history before they even began. This isn't just about a family member getting sick. This is about the son of a family facing the Grim Reaper at the tender age of 15, with his terrified parents holding the pen that would decide his fate. Imagine a world without the leader of the Purple Ocean. Imagine a world where the lyrics that saved millions were never written because a teenage heart simply stopped beating. This is the story of a 30% survival rate, a coin toss with death. A mother and father standing in a sterile hospital corridor, forced to gamble their child's life against a failing organ. The unique disease here is the ultimate betrayal of the body's engine. It is the story of the scar that hides behind the suit, the rhythm that almost flatlined, and the miracle that allows us to hear the words 2, 3, Bangtan. Today, the number one spot belongs to the heartbeat that fought to stay loud. Number 1. The son of the Kim family, RM Kim, Namjoon, the 30% probability of death, an open chess gamble at 15, and the congenital defect that almost killed the god of destruction. And here we are, at the undisputed number 1 spot, confronting the most terrifying, high-stakes medical crisis in the entire history of the BTS family trio, crisis that struck the very heart, quite literally, of the man who would grow up to lead the global music revolution, Kim Namjoon, the son of the Kim family. While we know him as RM, the eloquent genius with an IQ of 148, back then he was just a 15-year-old boy in Ilsan, dreaming of poetry and rap, unaware that a unique and deadly anomaly was ticking inside his chest like a time bomb. The disease in question was a severe, complex congenital heart defect, likely involving issues with the coronary arteries or significant arrhythmia that required immediate invasive intervention. To bring the Edu-Tainment perspective to this terrifying reality, you must understand the sheer brutality of the procedure he faced: open heart surgery. This isn't a simple scope or a laser treatment. This is the Mount Everest of surgery. It involves a sternotomy, a medical term for sawing through the breastbone to crack the rib cage open, exposing the mediastinum. For the Kim parents, this diagnosis must have shattered their world. Imagine being told that your brilliant teenage son, who has his whole life ahead of him, has a heart that is failing to pump blood correctly. The medical team delivered a statistic that has since become a legendary, haunting part of Armoire history: a 30% chance of survival. Let that sink in. A 70% chance of death. A 70% chance that the boy named Namjoon would never wake up, never debut, never speak at the UN. The disease here wasn't just a biological flaw. It was a thief threatening to steal a future genius. The narrative centers on the agonizing decision his parents had to make. They were the legal guardians. They had to sign the consent forms. Can you imagine the weight of that pen? The trembling hands? Signing a paper that acknowledges your child might die on the operating table in hopes of saving him? It is the ultimate test of parental love and courage. The surgery itself requires the patient to be placed on a cardiopulmonary bypass machine, a device that pumps blood and oxygen for the body while the heart is stopped. For several hours, Kim Namjoon was technically dead, his life sustained by a machine while surgeons worked with microscopic precision to repair the engine of his soul. This is where the unique aspect hits hardest. It is the story of a rebooted life. The scar he carries on his chest is not just a mark of surgery. It is a receipt of purchase for his second chance at existence. This health struggle is number 1 because the stakes were total. It wasn't about losing a career. It was about losing a life. The symptom of this disease, the breathlessness, the inability to oxygenate the blood, properly is hauntingly reflected in his early lyrics and his desperate desire to live and breathe through music. In his solo track intro, "Are you LBR? R?" he famously references his heart stopping, a literal nod to this medical trauma. For the family, the recovery was a grueling marathon of fear, watching the monitors, praying for the rhythm to stabilize, the fear of infection, the fear of rejection. But the miracle happened. The 30% probability won. The heart restarted, beating stronger, fiercer, and with a rhythm that would eventually sync with millions of fans around the world. This story is the crown jewel of our list because it proves that BTS's existence is a statistical miracle. It reminds us that behind the philosophical speeches and the heavy rap flows is a physical organ that was stitched back together by science and parental prayer. The parents of Kim Namjoon didn't just save their son that day. They saved the leader of a generation. It is a humbling, terrifying, and ultimately triumphant reminder that every beat of RM's heart is a victory against the odds. A unique disease conquered by the will to survive, making him the ultimate survivor and the rightful owner of the number 1 spot on our list.